Welcome to Hope Family Resources, where counseling resources bring hope to the heart of your family. In today's program, Dr. Denise Mari and Tom Lamar discuss the problem of addictions to drugs, alcohol, food, games, and even relationships. What seems to be a harmless, momentary escape from suffering may end up to be a destructive and long-lasting enslavement. This is the paradox of addiction.
Dr. Mari, exactly what does it mean to be addicted?
Being addicted is about being misguided by and destructively attached to a person, place, or thing that actually brings pleasure at some level. It means being enslaved by your desires, usually in secret, and it really involves behavior that is irresponsible and also behavior that is usually wrong.
How widespread is the problem of addiction?
Well, if you're not just talking about addiction to illicit drugs and alcohol, and you're including things like more hidden addictions to perhaps television or to food, we're talking about a problem that affects many Americans.
What are the signs that a person is suffering from addiction?
Okay, the signs of addiction would include things like a change in appearance of a person. Perhaps a person is no longer freely disclosing his whereabouts, where he's off to. A person might be manifesting mood swings, getting more impatient, or maybe even irritable. Perhaps demonstrating some paranoid behavior, and also depression is often a sign.
What are the characteristics of addiction?
Well, I think there are 5 main ones. The first would be the characteristic of withdrawal. Then we would have self-deception, tolerance, loss of willpower, and distortion of attention.
Can you explain what you mean by tolerance?
Okay. Tolerance would be, for example, in a case of a food addict, perhaps who has found that she has gone to a point that it's not just eating a few things that satisfies her appetite, but she has to eat more and more, and it doesn't become offensive to her how much she's eating. Now that contrasts to the characteristic of withdrawal, which is the characteristic where you have a person who perhaps is a heroin addict, and without having that normal dose of heroin, he begins to become, I guess, shaky, edgy, and really is driven to inject perhaps the heroin again. So those are 2 important qualities, the withdrawal, tolerance.
What about the addict's tendency to self-deception?
Well, self-deception is a very big problem. I'm thinking, let's say, of a case of an alcoholic where a person may rationalize his behavior, which really is about a problem of denial, partially or totally denying that he has a problem. So you might have an alcoholic who decides that he wants to show people that he really doesn't have a problem with a particular type of drink, so he'll maybe switch to a different type of drink just to give the impression that he doesn't really have a problem.
Dr. Mari, what about the 4th characteristic of addiction, the loss of willpower?
Okay, loss of willpower really refers to the difficulty that a person who's an addict has in restraining his behaviors revolving around addiction. So you might have, let's say, a teenager who is a video game player type of addict, and when his mother's away at work, he finds that it's a necessity or a demand to have a go at that video game. It's something that he feels is a powerful lure or attraction to. It's something very attractive, and he can't refrain himself from doing it.
And what do you mean by the last characteristic of addiction, distortion of attention?
Well, distortion of attention really is almost a kind of a tunnel vision, a mental tunnel vision, where a person becomes fixated with an idea about his addiction. So let's say you have an alcoholic and he starts thinking, fantasizing about having a drink at a particular bar, and then he decides that he just has to go and search out that bar in order to just relieve at least the initial sense of discomfort that he has. But he's really just so focused that he blocks out what's really important to attend to in his life.
From what you're saying, it sounds as if there are different levels of addiction. Is this true?
Yes, addiction is progressive. It's like having an internal blackmailer who is constantly demanding more and more from you. For example, let's say we know someone who is a cocaine addict, and he starts out perhaps buying some cocaine, fantasizing about it, and he does this maybe from time to time. But then he goes on to the next level, and at the next level he may perhaps go to cocaine parties, start even dressing like people who attend cocaine parties, getting high frequently in groups, but it doesn't stop there. It actually can go on to the next level, which might be that he starts experimenting with different ways of taking the cocaine, and actually might even do it in public. For example, go to a public park and use cocaine. It's like his inhibitions are deteriorating. And at the worst level, you might find that he actually descends to stealing or doing other unethical things in order to support the habit. So it really is a downward spiral.